Hi, my name is Andy Furlonger. I'm the membership manager of What We Do Now. What We Do Now is a growing network of practitioners and hubs who are passionate about using creativity to help communities shape their future. I'm really happy today to welcome Yvonne Barber. Yvonne is the manager of A the Airts, which is an organisation in Sanquhar. And Yvonne, if you'd like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background and how you came to start working in All the Arts.
Good morning, Andy. Yes, it's lovely to be with you. We are part of the What We Do Now network. Our community arts centre is called All the Airts up in Sanquhar, and we have been here for over 10 years. It started in 2010. My work, I originally was a theatre practitioner, so went to theatre school and then went into management. So the job here is the perfect fit for me in terms of it just encompasses all the different skills that I've got. And I've been here now for almost 8 years, and I can honestly say I've loved every minute of it. Although it's been challenging, it's just such a rewarding job, and I'm very privileged to have the job.
Brilliant. I really appreciate that. And so we're going to jump straight into the questions. So I think one of the first things that we would like to uncover is, would you actually say that the origin of this centre is community led? Was the need identified through the community?
So the centre began going back to 2004. There was two local women who felt that the community in Sanquhar needed an art centre. And that came about because they found that the community here are very creative and very artistic, but wouldn't necessarily see themselves in that way. So they wanted to start an art centre that was an outlet for people to come together, to make, to bake, to do different things, to do with the arts. So they actually got the funding together, they got a steering group, and they actually performed so well in terms of securing that funding. And the centre then started in 2010, and it's grown in popularity, the amount of people who access it, the different demographics of people in the centre are just enormous, from literally 5 year olds to 95-year-olds. So it's everything I hope that they would think it would have been at the time, or they would have thought it would have been. They still come in here and they can see the progress that we've made. They're still involved, one still volunteers. But there was a committee that was put together, and they actually, found the funding to create a space in it, what was a derelict building on the high street. Since then, we've had an extension of the building, so it's twice the size of what it was. So it's a fantastic facility for the community, and I think it's well resourced now. And I think also the local community can see the benefits to all of the people within this community at Sanquhar and Upper Nidsdale.
Yeah, I visited recently, as you know, and I think one of the things that was most impressive and unique is the work you do around the local pattern. Can you tell us a little bit about that and the space that you have there dedicated to that?
Yeah, so Sanka has its own knitting pattern, and it's a bit like the Fair Isle pattern. There's actually 16 different Sanka patterns, and they've been around since the 1700s, and it's documented quite well in the Tolbooth Museum here that's owned by Dumfries and Galloway Council. So we started a project to try and keep the heritage of the knitting alive. It was originally taught in the schools on the curriculum. And what we wanted to do was have an outlet for people to continue with the knitting. So the gloves that are knitted, they can take up to 30 hours to knit a pair of gloves. And the history of them is that you have your initials knitted into the cuffs of the gloves. And that again goes back to the 1700s. So all of the patterns are based around historical events. So the one that they call the main Sanka pattern is called the Duke pattern, after the Duke of Buccleuch, who actually commissioned the townspeople to knit gloves and stockings for his family at the time. So it's taken off, and we've recently had three young girls from Sanquhar Academy who are 17 who've come and been learning how to make scarves, hats, etc. And it's something that's so lovely to see younger people getting involved in, because the workforce that we have is an aging workforce, so we do need young blood. So it's important that that's shared within the community and kept within Sanquhar.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And the I think you've got your facility, you sell quite a lot of the patterns there as well, and a lot of the of that knitwear.
We do. We have a knitting workshop within the centre, and what we do, we actually knit here. We do classes here as well to teach the community how to continue with the Sanquhar knitting. And then there's a shop, a craft shop, which we have local artists who sell the wares through it, and also the Sanquhar knitwear. And we have people coming from all over the world to hear the history of the knitting. So it's really well thought of, and it's something that we're so proud of, and we want to continue with.
Do you think this is something that's growing? Because I've seen over lockdown, a lot of people were getting very interested in knitting, and it was younger people as well. And I used to see people on the tube in London knitting, going to work. So do you think it's something that's actually growing? I know there's a lot of history in it, but is it something that potentially in the future could start to become more of a hobby and an interest for younger people?
Yeah, definitely. I think that we've definitely got younger people who are interested in knitting. I think Tom Daly has done a lot for knitting, in that he's been knitting at the Olympics and what have you. But it's certainly something that younger people are interested in now because they can see the value of it. It's a nice get together as well if you're knitting with other people. It's a social thing as well as a skill. And it's so lovely to just see these three young lasses from Sanquhar Academy coming in and working with the older people in the community to learn the skill.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So the Sanquhar Academy, that leads on to another question that I had. So it, it doesn't necessarily have to be this one, but do you have an example of a collaboration with like a school or a local group that demonstrates how A the Airts fosters community engagement and actually contributes to economic regeneration in the area?
Yeah. So All the Arts works with a number of different groups within Upper Nithsdale. The three schools, so we've got Keller Home School, which is about 3 miles from here. We've got Sanquhar Academy, which is a mile away, and Sanquhar Primary, which is on our doorstep. And we work closely in collaboration with all three schools. So there's varying projects that we do from arts, crafts. We also do some employability skills with them, which is a little bit out the remit of the Arts Centre, but we give young people placement opportunities here. So if they're interested in administration, in art, in crafts, in hospitality, they can come and get an experience with us that helps them towards their CV. One young lad who's recently run the DG Life Young Entrepreneur Award, he started off coming in here and did some baking with us on a Saturday morning when he was very young. And now he's just won that award and has his own business. So, Knocking Hair Hospitality is Harry Gallagher, a young lad who basically started with us and Sanquhar Academy to really move forward. But the economy is important to the arts because if we get people coming on, because we have people coming from all over the world to see the knitting, whilst they're here, they will also then go to all of the local shops, they'll pick up items from them. And we do pre warn the shops that we've got a knitting tour happening because if 30 people land on the town, it's a lot of people going into local shops. So it's ideal to just share that wealth with everybody within. And also local artists, if we run things in the centre, we like to employ local people to deliver the training and the arts to people. So it's kind of that circular economy of making sure that you're spreading the wealth, and any funding that we get, we try and give back to the community.
I think one of the things that you said there that really is of interest to me is the employability stuff you're doing. Now, as you may know, what we do now is currently doing a training program, and a lot of them are practical things, things like doing tax returns, things like how to market your art. But I think some of these things like employability, it's great to be an artist, but also it's realistic to understand that you may have to get a normal job,
Yeah,
and the fact that a lot of artists have just spent so much time being creative and they don't even know how to do a CV, that's
yeah.
going to make such a big difference. They might get a job that's even a little bit related to the arts, working with you or another organization. So I think these kind of things are really good, not just for young people, but hopefully for creative people as well.
Absolutely. I mean, when I started off, when I came out of theatre school and I was working in things like theatre and education, I was doing extra work, I was doing all these different things that actors do. But I realised very quickly that that isn't always going to be your bread and butter every week. So then I went and did my teacher training, and that's how I got into management. So I just went in a different path. But yeah, it's really important that people have those skills. And that's something that we like to offer here is how do you write your CV? How do you do a cover and letter? We do mock interviews with the young people and with adults as well. On a Friday morning, we have an employability cafe here with Skills Development Scotland. So they can come in and speak to Cara, who works here on a Friday, and ask her about how you become self-employed, what do you do to get a job? And so all these other facilities are here within the centre, not necessarily run by the staff here, but we have access to other people. And that's what placemaking is all about. It's about giving people that all-round experience of where can I go to get help.
Yeah, I think also with the growth of hubs like your organization and these other organizations that are sort of popping up in the area, I hope, and it's one of the things that I kind of I'm inspired by and drives me with this role, is that it makes people feel that you can be an artist in this part of the world. Like, you don't have to go to a town, or you don't have to go to a city and live that kind of rat race and be in, like, not very beautiful surroundings. You
Yeah,
can live in places like Upper Nithsdale, which are just gorgeous. And
yeah,
I feel these kind of areas are good for creativity, and I feel that there is obviously benefits to being in a city where you meet people, but I feel the disadvantage of being in little cramped spaces. So I hope that these kind of the thing that you're doing there and some of the other centres around, like Old School Thornhill and the Stove and so on, they're allowing people to see in the arts and culture, and maybe even acting one day, that
yeah.
people can live in these remote parts of the world and still be successful in the creative sector.
Absolutely. That's so important. And it's so important that organisations pay people what they're worth. And that's something that we write into all of our funding bids, that we work with the Scottish Artists Union rates to pay people properly. Because if you're an artist or an actor or whatever you are, it's very, very difficult, and work is, it's sparse. So when you do get work, you need to be paid properly for it, because it's not just about what you're delivering on that day. It's about your training and what you've done on the build up to that. So it's important that we pay artists properly and that we value them, and see this as a real work path for people. And we encourage our young people, making sure that they're aware of role models in Dumfries and Galloway. We've worked with CT Productions, who have brought in young artists and young creatives from across Dumfries and Galloway to speak to our young people, to show them that it is possible to make a career out of the arts. But as you said, it's so important to know how to do your tax return as well. So it's, yeah, very interesting subject, and I think I could stay here all day and talk about it. So
It really is, yeah. And I've been to your centre recently, and just the range of people. Like, you've got people in their 90s, as you say. You've got kids running around outside, and these are the kind. I mean, this back in the olden days, and I'm like 45, so
yeah,
things like this were a bit more normal. Like youth centres, and those places that people used to gather, and it's now they're having to be funded. It's not
yeah.
it's sad, but at least they are appearing.
Yeah.
I think that's, yeah,
I
it's
know I
interesting.
started off at youth theatre when I was a very young 13-year-old, and went along and didn't know what it was all about. But the value that that gave me in terms of meeting with people outside of my school, it was people from different backgrounds, different schools, and it really just gave me a different lease of life, I think, and a different way of looking at things. Because school doesn't teach you everything that you need to know about interacting with other people. You're just meeting with the people from your area who are all very similar to you. So to work with diverse people and to come across people with different views, it was really enlightening for me at that young age. And I think I've carried that with me, and that's what I want to do here with our young people, is give them experiences of mixing with other people, seeing what the big world is out there. And Dumfries and Galloway is such a creative place and such a beautiful place to live. Hence, I love Liverpool because I'm from there, but I absolutely love it up here because of the space and the scenery, the lovely people that I work with. I'm very lucky.
It really is beautiful, yeah. And you touched on something there, the sort of diversity and so on. Um, your role in terms of funding and managing this centre, what kind of steps have you needed to take to make sure that All the Airts remains inclusive, accessible, and how do you get feedback from the community to shape the programmes and events?
So when I first started here, my ethos is that this centre is for everyone. It doesn't matter what background you're from. It's all about, and people come to us with ideas, Andy. So if they say to us, I would love to see this happening in the centre because I'd really enjoy that, then we try our best to accommodate that. Now, funding restricts that at times, but we have to prove to the funders that we are doing a good job. Um, and that can be, if you haven't got the buy-in from people, it's all right putting things on, but if you put on things you think they want, they won't come to it. You've got to listen to the community's views and you've got to find out what they've enjoyed. And we've tried a couple of things that have failed, we're by no means perfect, but it's just about trial and error sometimes. And if something's working, it's about then building upon that and seeing what you can do next with it and moving it forward and making sure that the community are enjoying it. So we speak to the community. I'm very visible in the centre. So I chat to the groups who come in. I listen to what they've got to say. I listen to the moans if they've got some, which is fine. But you have to kind of adapt and flex to what the community needs at that time.
Definitely. What's a good example of like what would you say has been your most successful? What's the one that you're proudest of and that's maybe the most popular? Like which one would you put forward as that?
I think there's been so many different projects that we've delivered, but we have a craft group on a Friday, and that's been going on for quite a number of years, and we have to keep finding different pots of funding because that gives employment to local people as well who deliver those sessions. But that's always a popular class, it's always full, it's always a little bit oversubscribed, but that goes really well. Our other one, from a young person's point of view, we've had our youth theatre here now for 7 years, and we've always had two groups of young people who come in, and the group changes every year, different people join and then they move on. But there's two performances a year that we do, and the community all get on board with that and come and see it and support it. And, we put things like, does anybody have a rocking chair for this play out to the community? And people will come forward and let you borrow things. So it's a real community effort. So it's lovely.
Yeah, it's a great space, and I do believe that you can learn a lot from things that don't work particularly well. I think they give you good information. And has there been anything that, for whatever reason, just didn't take off the way that you thought? Is there examples of that you've learned from?
Yeah, we've been working quite recently with the Biosphere to do some sustainable events. And we've done a couple of book swaps where we've had guest speakers who are local writers and poets, and they've gone really, really well. But then the other bit of that funding was for a clothes swap. And we've put two dates in and it just hasn't been well received at all. And I got feedback about that. I asked people, well, why do you think you didn't want to come to that? And they said, it's a very small town. And if you're swapping clothes with somebody else, you could be sat in the cafe and somebody's wearing your coat that you've given in. It's not quite the right thing. So we've drawn a line under that. We fed back to the funder. It didn't work. They're fine with it. They're happy that we've been honest, and we know for the future if you've tried it twice, it's not really going to work. So yeah.
No, that is interesting. Yeah, it makes sense though. I wouldn't want to be seen in someone else's jacket, the
No.
next week. Um, Now, I know all of Dumfries and Galloway this applies to in terms of the demographics, which are quite aging. And obviously, it's very rural, which brings its own challenges in terms of transport and that kind of thing. How do you see all the Airts evolving to meet the needs of older residents, but still having to engage with the younger generations?
Yeah. So all the arts, the bulk of the people that come to our centre tend to be older people, and we've worked very hard over the last few years to get younger ones involved with us. But one of the projects that we're doing going forward to try and get both groups together is we've just got some funding to have a project where the older people tell the younger people all about the folklore of the town. And I know we're going to do some work with the stove on this as well. It's just about really finding out the history of the town, making the young people proud of the town. But at the same time, the older people will then see that the younger people in the town are the ones who will be the future and need to know the heritage and the history. So it's going to be a really beautiful project that we'll have an exhibition next year, and that will be basically young people every couple of weeks coming together and sitting eating lunch with the older people. So it'll all be quite informal. But we've got a young heritage group running with Sanquhar Academy, and they will be the people who are involved in that documentation of the town. So it'll be really nice to have that going forward as a beautiful project we can show that encompasses all the ages within the community. Because rural isolation is real. Quite a number of our volunteers live alone, and coming to the centre is something that they enjoy because they make new friends. We have regular volunteer meetings, so you can see there's a social aspect to volunteering as well. And it's just really nice to see that happening.
Definitely, that's a really good answer. And then I think the final thing that I just wanted to ask you, this is sort of looking to the future, and there's a lot of challenges that you face in sustaining the centre and growing it, and um, obviously this being rural. What opportunities do you see, and how do you see yourself overcoming these in the future?
Yeah, there's a lot of challenges for any community arts organisation. There's a lot of challenges for any business at the moment with the cost of living crisis. We have, a food share program here where people come in and access food, and yeah, it's very difficult. I think the way that I see it and the way that I approach it is you just crack on with it all, and you just try and keep going, and you keep showing the community your worth. If you show the community your worth, then funders will follow suit, hopefully, and that will help us then to keep going. But there's massive overheads on the building here. People don't always see just how much it's costing us to run the building. But it's so important that this building stays here because it is such a good outlet for people, especially if they are feeling a bit lonely or they've got a problem. They can come in and talk to any of the staff here. We are a very lean team, and we wouldn't exist without our volunteers. So it's so important that we find a way to keep going. I'm very driven. And I never sort of say never. I'll never sit back and just let it get to a point where we just can't keep going anymore. We'll always try and think of new ideas and keep building. But yeah, there's definitely funding challenges. Um, we're lucky in that we're surrounded by a lot of wind farms here. Whether you love them or you hate them, they help us keep going with projects that benefit the community.
That's a great answer. Thanks so much, Yvonne. I think the work that All the Airts is doing and all your team is incredible, but I think particularly, your drive and your, personality and the energy that you bring is just incredible. Every time I've been there, everyone's just been so blown away by the whole experience, from the introduction to the food to the, just the cleanliness and everything of the building. You're just doing such a great job, and your team is fantastic. So I'd just like to thank you for your time today, also for all the work that you're doing. And we look forward to sort of seeing all the other projects that are coming up. And if anyone wants to get in touch, what's the best contact for you? Is there email or website?
Yeah, you can contact me, yvonne.barber@alltheairts.org.uk, or give me a call on 01659 50514, or go to any of our social media accounts, which is A the Airts at A the Airts. So yeah, lovely.
Idiots, and I'd just like to apologise in advance for my pronunciation of anything in case that's
I'm
um,
English, Andy, so my pronunciation is probably not the best either, but it doesn't matter.
but thanks so much again, Yvonne, and have a great day. And I look forward to seeing you or soon in Sanka.
Thank you very much, Andy. Take
Bye.
care. Bye.